Well, my name is Will Hawkins. I'm the owner of All Pro Plumbing and Air. We do plumbing, air conditioning, and irrigation. At Will Fixit, I started in my garage, and then we grew it to, a $5.7 million company in a matter of, 11 years or so. We employ somewhere between 50 to 75 employees, depending on season. We're an air conditioning company, so we get really busy during the summer, and then during the winter we scale back a little bit. My first job was Whataburger. I worked behind the counter at Whataburger, but yeah, I went right into plumbing, and I've had other jobs. I got in and out of the plumbing world in the very beginning until I got real serious about it, probably in 1984. I started in the plumbing industry right out of high school in 1981. And I was probably 17 years old, and so yeah, I've been doing it about that long. So I started off working for my brother-in-law, or actually it was my sister's boyfriend at the time. I was going to college, and I was working for him on weekends and after school, and then one semester I decided not to go back, so I started working for him, and it was kind of a plumbing service company where we fixed lots of toilets and faucets and whatnot. Nobody really aspires to be a plumber. We aspire to be doctors and policemen and firemen and that type of thing. But I fell in love with the trade because I was working with my hands. I was going to school, and I really didn't know what I was going to do at school. I was just, society teaches, get good grades, go to college, and get a job. And I don't think that mold fits for everybody. So when I was sitting there working with my hands, at the end of the day, I said, hey, I did that. Or, you come in and somebody's house is flooding and you save them, so you feel you got this big red S on your chest, and it was a great feeling. I came kind of from a broken home. I didn't have traditional parents that kind of oversaw everything I did. My parents died when I was very young. My mom and dad got married, and my dad died when I was 2. My mom died when I was 11. My stepdad died when I was 15. The short version is my mom and dad got married. I was a surprise baby. My dad died when he was 42. I was 2 years old. My mom remarried, and then she died when I was 11. So I lived with my stepdad, and then he remarried, and then he died when I was 15. So my senior year in high school, I lived with my stepmom, and then right out of high school, I moved to Austin, and I was going to UT. Going back to my life as a kid and a teenager, both my parents worked, so we had a lady that took care of me. I grew up in El Paso, on a border town, and so there's a lady that kind of took care of me, and so I spoke Spanish before I spoke English. My parents would talk to me in English, and I talked to them back in Spanish up until I was about 5 years old. I had to go to Head Start with all the kids that were coming in from Mexico. And for some reason, since I was a big kid, my parents thought it was a good idea to start me school, start first grade at 5 years old, even though I didn't speak English. So growing up through grade school, I was behind. I struggled in school. It was hard for me. And up until I got in high school, where I was able to catch back up, and I started getting good grades and was able to do, kind of get concepts and stuff like that. So I ended up getting good grades in high school. And right out of high school, I went to Austin, then I moved back and forth to El Paso, and there was times where I was homeless. I lived in my car. I lived, probably three months in my car. I would park at the truck truck stop, and I would take showers at the truckers for $3. I think it was $2 or $3 a shower, and then I'd sleep in my car, and then I'd go to work until I saved enough money to get a place to stay. And then after that, I ended up moving back to Austin, working for another company, and then ended up in San Antonio, and the rest is kind of history. One of my mentors was a family that kind of took me in, and his name was Chuck Hopkins, and so he kind of showed me how to be a husband, through living through him, and a dad. And so it kind of took me into my 20s, and then my another mentor at that time was probably one of my singles ministers when I was going to church, and so he kind of got me on a more narrow path because I wasn't on a narrow path at that time, and so that was one of my mentors. And now as I'm older, gentlemen that I've known that are in the business world that are older, that have kind of retired and stuff like that, I still am able to call those guys up and for advice and whatnot. Some of my mentors are, and it all depends on what world I'm in at that time. Whether it's a business world, I've got some guys that I can call up and that have kind of been there and done that, or are a little bit more versed in dealing with, let's say, with employees or somebody doing new ventures and stuff like that. And then church-wise, I have some good friends that are in church that I can call up and say, hey, I'm struggling with whatever, and so those, I got two different kinds of mentors. The thing I enjoy, the most thing I enjoy about, I like building the business. When we bought All Pro, I had a company called Will Fix It, and I grew it to a certain size, and then I had a consolidator call me up and say, hey, you want to sell your company? And I said, well, not really. And they said, well, how about for this much money? I said, oh yeah, I'll do that. And so I sold it. I had a 5-year non-compete, and then I got back in and I bought All Pro. At Will Fix It, I started in my garage, and then we grew it to a $5.7 million company in a matter of, I don't know, 11 years or so. All Pro I bought, and we started off with 5 trucks, and now we're running probably close to 35 trucks, and we started that in 13, so 5 years later. So I like the growing side of it. I like the training side of it. I like the developing of an individual who doesn't have a skill, and you draw a skill of either plumbing or air conditioning, and he looks back on his life and goes, I've made something of myself because somebody invested some time and energy in teaching me how to do this trade. When I started Will Fix It, I was working for a commercial plumbing. I was working down here at Lackland and Kelly Air Force Base, doing big jobs, $2 million plumbing jobs, construction, and my wife had just had our first child, and the company I was working for out of Austin wanted me to move back to Austin, and I said, I'm just going to stay here, and I had a Toyota pickup, and I sold it, and I traded in on a van. I bought a van, and we started a service company out of my garage. Now, one of my people that I admired growing up was a friend of mine, his family, and he was a plumber, and I liked the way they did life. They did family vacations and stuff together, and I always admired that. So I always wanted to kind of emulate that company, which was, they ran 5 trucks, and once we hit 5 trucks, we just had so many more calls, and so we had to add another truck, and then we got more calls and we got more trucks, and pretty soon, I can't really stay small because it's just not in me. Some of the best things that helped me build my business was, I stayed focused on principles. I have a true north, that God being in the center, and so doing the right thing was always our intention. Not that we always did the right thing, but our intention was always to do the right thing, and you'll take care of the customer. Just do the right thing. That was our motto at Will Fix It, is just do the right thing. If it takes a little longer, even though you're not going to make as much money, or you might lose more material or something, it's the right thing to do. Just do the right thing. And so if you stick to doing the right thing with the true north, everything else worked out. We got good customers, we got loyal customers, we got great employees, and all those things came together because we just did the right thing. Things that motivate me are starting from this and doing this. Whether it's a business, I tell people I have the curse of entrepreneurship. I see something and I think I can make it better, or I can do that and grow it on lots of different things. So my mind is always being pulled, and I have to pull myself down to the ground and ground myself and say, okay, let's focus on this, because I can get very, you know, distracted by the task that I'm at, because I see other things that I love doing. So what I love most about doing what we do is investing in people, whether it's our customer or our employees, and seeing how they grow. Some of the secrets to our success: first, you have to define success. What one calls success and what other calls success can be very different. You know, I think success for me personally is having a balanced life. You know, we work hard, but we don't work 80 hours a week. I did in the very beginning to start to build the business, but I knew back then that I didn't want to be the guy working, you know, 6-7 days a week and missing opportunities with my family and my personal time. So I think success for me, as I define it, is having balance in my life. You know, I think we were created as men to work and provide and do certain things. So I think having a good me personally is good for my family, and having a good family is good for my business. Good business, they all kind of interlay, as long as I have balance in my head. Too much of anything is bad, I think. Whether it's tacos or money or success in what the world calls success, I think can be too much of anything is bad for you. Success in the business world for me, I believe, is good reviews. You know, I think as long as our customers are happy, really my most precious asset is our employees. I used to think it was our customers, and I've moved off that, and I think it's our employees, because if you have great employees, they take care of your customers, which in turn take care of you. My words of wisdom for the next generation, you know, I come from a world of you work and you reap rewards. The millennials aren't. They're more concerned with personal time and then work. And I think, going back to one of my original statements, you know, balance is I think balance is is my words of wisdom to the future generation, because you still have to work hard to get things done. At the same time, don't work for the sake of working. I work to live, not live to work, basically. Things I like to do when I'm not working is we like to travel. Me and my wife like to travel, me and my family like to travel, and you know, we definitely have designated date, you know, me and my wife time, and then we have family time. And so that's one of our passions. My passion is I love to travel and see different parts of the world and states, and you know, I think the United States has a lot to offer all by itself. But yeah, we like to travel. It's one of our favorite things to do. How I measure success, you know, there is something to having you being financially able to pay bills and not live outside your means. I think that's important. At the same time, you know, not having a bunch of stress where I can't sleep at night and worrying about how something's going to get done. And so I measure success by being able to sleep at night and, you know, and still have enough money in the bank to get some of the things that I want to get done, whether it's college educations or trips or you know, having some fun toys to play with. How many times did I fail before I had success? You know, I didn't really ever count them, but there were a lot of times, you know, where I couldn't pay bills. You know, we struggled as a company early on, where, you know, we would be overextended on our credit or working through all that. And so, you know, coming right off into a brand new business, starting out in my garage, it wasn't all, you know, cherries and roses and whatever the phrase is. So we've had lots of failures, as in, hey, I can't pay my bills on time. And fortunately, I worked with some really great vendors that were able to see that I had potential, and they believed in me, where they still let me buy, and I got caught back up. And at the same time, you know, I would not make a paycheck, but I always made sure we were never short on payroll. We never, you know, not paid somebody their worth. So my hope for future generations is, you know, we live right now in a world that our country can be very divided, and people are very angry with the other side, or, hey, I don't believe in the way you live your life, and I would like to see a more of accepting. We don't have to accept a lifestyle or a belief system or something to that effect, but I believe that we should love that person, because they're a human being just like we are. We're all created alike, and we may not believe the same, but I should be very tolerant. Some of the defining days that I've had over my life is, you know, the day I became a believer in God, the day I was married, you know, to my wife of 26 years, the birth of my three daughters were very big defining days. The day I sold We'll Fix It, when you signed on the dotted line and there's a bunch of zeros in your account. A defining day. You know, I'm on certain trips. I'm in Africa on a mission trip doing some great work, and these are milestones and memories that you'll never be erased out of my head, because, you know, they're so defined in there. So if I had to give myself words of encouragement today, looking back as an 18-year-old young man, my words of encouragement would be, do the right thing, keep the big stuff, and keep the small stuff, and don't get those two mixed up. And I tended to focus on letting the small stuff get to be big stuff, and it wasn't really ever. So that's my words of encouragement. The small stuff is material things that, you know, I thought were important, that I wanted or needed, and really the big stuff is relationships with people, taking care of people, because it's really all about people, and all the material stuff happens if you take care of people. How you learn to separate the big stuff from the small stuff is at certain times of the year, or, you know, you take an inventory or self-inventory of what's really important. You look back and you go, you know, I got all upset about that, and it really wasn't ever a big deal. And I should have invested more time in these people, when I was really focused on something that was really immaterial, that never really even played out, and I worried about something that never even happened. A lot of the way things have gone through my life is through pushes and nudges, and doors being open and windows being shut, or vice versa, and taking those opportunities when a door is open to really have the confidence or the lack of fear to go and venture off and do that. But when a door is closed, you know, you accept it for what it is, and then you move and you just keep moving through life.